live. Hi guys, Bill again. I think I might be stepping over a line here. If I am, and you're active in America, then please be careful what you leave in the comments. It's to do with the Southern Poverty Law Centre. You know, whenever feminists want to shame MRAs, they always bring that out and they tar us with that brush. It's like a bully threatening the other kids with their mythical big cousin. The trouble is that I'm British. I've got no clue who these guys are or why what they think matters to anybody. So I've been digging. Now I'm not saying I've got it right. I mean, I live a continent away and there must be a ton of nuances and cultural norms that are just flying right by me. But it's interesting stuff. I always think that wiki is a great way to gauge public opinion and see what the public narrative is on a subject that you're not familiar with. And in this case it's pretty obvious that the SPLC is perceived to be an impartial charity that protects minorities from hate groups. But that's not technically correct. See, they are privately funded, which should remove government pressure from their policy making decisions, but that doesn't imply that they're independent from pressure from their financiers. And they don't defend anybody. They seek retribution for crimes committed by who they perceive to be hate groups. Now their service is free and it's definitely welcomed by the victim or the victim survivors, but their aim's always to punish the miscreant, not to compensate the victim. So before we go any further, I think there's already quite a difference between their public persona and their true character. I think it's important to point out that they've never gone quite as far as to nominate any MRA as being part of a hate group. What they have done is they've included some activism on their intelligence report page. Now far be it for me to put words in people's mouths, but when a supposed intelligence document opens with "Misogynists in the men's and fathers' rights movement have developed a set of claims about women," I'm a bit dubious about whether it's impartial or not. I've linked to the page in the low bar. Now you already know what my take on this debate is. The popular narrative is driven by a feminist agenda, whether it's something the reporters picked up in college or whether they identify as feminists. They're pushing this message: men are violent beasts, women are helpless victims. But a huge number of studies and reports refute this. It's simplistic and it's dangerously misleading. I've put a link in the low bar. It's not exhaustive, but it makes the point. Well over 200 reports. Well, broadly speaking, there's a parity in rates of domestic violence. You know, attacks are more frequently carried out by women, but being typically less powerful than males, they tend to get hurt more often than the males. The SPLC report was published by an organisation that's mainly lawyers. You know, it's a pretty safe bet they can justify every single one of those cherry-picked statistics. But look how vague it is. Look at the language they're using. You know, they've got lots of "this is meant to show," "some suggest," "others show." You know, it's sweeping statements and it's leading comments, and everything's pointing towards an impression that the MRAs are deliberately manipulating a small number of unreliable reports just to make a point. And in fact, quite the reverse is true. The SPLC are deliberately plucking figures from different reports to reinforce this popular narrative, instead of refuting the MRM claims with hard facts and figures. They're not exactly lying, but they're not even entertaining a serious debate. And from misogynist on, it's just an exercise in discrediting the arguments that MRAs are putting forward. Now their treatment of rape is a case in point. I've linked to the actual report they're referencing down in the low bar. Now the first thing to note is that it's not even close to a true number. It's a broad estimate based on a telephone survey, right? Now it's a nationwide survey, but it's still only 16,507 responses from the whole of the United States. Now, I've said it before, the number of nationally reported rapes in official statistics don't get anywhere near the percentages that these reports seem to be coming out with, and it raises an interesting question: why not? Now, it could just be a failure to report the way the feminists say it is, or it could be flawed methodology in reports like this one. If anybody's got Justicar's number, they could maybe give them a phone and see how statistically sound such a small survey would be for extrapolating lifetime figures for the whole of a continent. But there's fine print there as well. Have a look at that survey and find some of its other findings, and you can see why they went with just that rape statistic, that one rape statistic. There's a whole bunch of them in there, a whole slew of them. Domestic violence rates, as the MRMs are always saying, were pretty much equivalent, and in fact on the very same page they found that gotcha number. I got this quote: approximately 1 in 20 women and men, about 5.6% and 5.3% respectively, experienced sexual violence victimisation other than rape by any perpetrator in the 12 months prior to taking the survey. And I found this one: an estimated 1 in 17 women and 1 in 20 men, that's 5.9 and 5% respectively, experienced rape, physical violence and or stalking by an intimate partner in the 12 months prior to taking the survey. Now, does that sound like a firm rebuttal of our MRA claims? Or does that sound pretty much what we've been saying all along? Remember that this is their preferred survey. This is what they supplied us. This isn't something that I've carefully chosen on behalf of the MRM. Now, I'll save my theorising about fundraising for another video because it's quite a tangled web they're weaving. But it's worth noting that the SPLC is rated poor by Charity Navigator, and again there's a link for that in the low bar. I think it's worth paying some attention to who they identify as hate organisations. The Family Research Council are, quite frankly, an odious collection of homophobes and bigots, but they're hardly likely to go around attacking people, certainly not in person. They're a DC pressure group, not some tooled up militia, but the SPLC identified them as a hate group in 2010. Now, I don't have any time at all for the FRC, but there are laws in the United States protecting their right to be obnoxious. One of their security staff was gunned down recently, and the SPLC have got to take some of the heat for that. But obviously they don't, so I'll leave you that page giving their version of events. Another thing I'm not keen on is conservative politics, but again, there's nothing illegal about being a conservative. You know, I just happen to disagree with them. The SPLC have gone quite a bit further than just disagreeing. They're accusing political activists like David Horowitz of being Hitlerian. David Horowitz, Hitlerian. I mean, that's got a sting. Yeah, that'd be like calling me a fucking Georgian. A whole bastard clan were Jacobites. More to the point, they're gathering intelligence on groups that they consider to be potentially hate groups based on a transparently left-wing worldview. Now that's a worry, because there's laws firmly in place to prevent American federal agencies from compiling dossiers like that, based solely on religious or political affiliation. The FBI freely acknowledges that they use information supplied by the SPLC, as do many smaller law enforcement agencies. So they're not independent from the government, peeps. The SPLC's actually got quite close ties to federal agencies. I'd say it would be extremely unlikely that there isn't quite the exchange of ideas and agendas going on between the two groups. It opens federal agencies to the possibility of being accosted into politically motivated operations, and it also opens the SPLC up to the charge that they're being used to further federal aims. Now, neither of those could be a good thing. Now guys, I'll be coming back to this one as I learn more about the subject. But as I see it, the SPLC, they aren't independent, they aren't protecting anybody, and they aren't a particularly good charity. And it's the same as so many of these things. The popular narrative is completely at odds with the facts of the matter. We're being lied to again. I wouldn't want to be this organisation's enemy, but I refuse point blank to feel any kind of shame just because they want to badmouth my cause. And to be perfectly honest, they could do with getting their own house in order before they start throwing accusations at anybody else. I'm very interested in American opinions on this. You know, am I attacking a sacred cow here? Or, on the other hand, have they got the clout that I imagine they've got? Let me know what you think, guys. Later, eh?